Today we're going to be taking a look at just a few of my absolute favorite fragrances out of my entire collection. Now I'm emphasizing on the fact that we're just looking at a select few. There are a lot of variables that go into this, and so a lot of that would be things that are really hard to find, just discontinued, rare things, maybe some overly expensive stuff. All of that stuff pretty much has been excluded here. Because that would change the video up quite a bit. For the most part, these are all pretty easy to get into your collection. And doing a video like this is challenging because there are so many things that I really enjoy, and it's hard to narrow it down to the things that I really, really love. So there are a couple that are obvious ones that aren't going to be in here. Creed Aventus, Roja Elysium, and probably a few others that, definitely are some of my prized possession scents. I'm not including those, I'm including some different things. Let's get things kicked off with a Chanel. Gotta love the brand. They're not pumping out nearly the amount of fragrances and flankers that basically all the other designer brands are doing. And that's pretty cool, that's admirable. And they really strung us along with Super Leggera, because that stuff smelled amazing, and now it's already, you can't get it anymore. I knew it was a limited edition, but well, they took it away quick. But anyway, Bleu de Chanel Parfum is one that I absolutely love. It is my personal favorite of the Bleu de Chanels, and it's really about the only one that I reach for on a somewhat regular basis. And why is that? I really don't know what the allure or the charm is when it comes to this for me, because it's not something that is, like super different, but at the same time, it kind of is, I guess. It's your blue fragrance, but with a very mature, classy twist. Think of Sauvage Parfum, but even more refined than that. And that's kind of where this one would be placed in terms of a category. I really, really enjoy this. You still get that Bleu de Chanel smell, which is essentially that kind of smoky grapefruit, woody, gentleman smell. You still get all of that. This one in particular has this nice lemon zest accord, which gives it a little bit of a slight kind of kick to it. Not spicy, but just a kind of a textured, citrusy smell that you get mostly off the opening that makes this one stand out. Quite a bit of sandalwood is being utilized here, which gives it kind of a smooth, creamy dry down. I think this one is suitable for anybody, but especially the guy who just wants an everyday wear signature scent that works for literally anything. This is it. Now, of course, the price point is a little bit limiting there as far as wearing this every day. Not everybody wants to spend, I think it's $230 on a big 150 ml and then wear it every day, because, that'll get a little bit costly. But this one has the ability to do so because it would work for anything. And that's one of the things that I like about it. Okay, this next one more or less is just nostalgic for me. I think that's why I like it so much. It is Dior Homme Original. And it takes me all the way back to, of course, the original Dior Homme. And that was one that I didn't get first. I got Dior Homme Intense first, but then not long after I ended up getting Dior Homme. Really ended up enjoying it because it was just a bit fresher. And then Dior Homme Eau was a favorite of mine for a long time. And in fact, I still love Dior Homme Eau. That stuff smells amazing. Of course, they discontinued it. But in one way or another, this reminds me of it a little bit, just because of the added freshness. Or at least, I guess one way to look at it is because of the lack of sweetness somewhat compared to Dior Homme Intense and Dior Homme Parfum, 2014 style. It's different. And I think it's a little bit more approachable, especially if you're not fully into iris and it's not your type of thing. Starting off with something like Dior Homme Original is a nice way to ease into it before you go full into something that's a lot heavier. The Prada L'Homme is a great one to start off with as well for iris, but there's something about Dior Homme Original that I really like. There for a while you couldn't buy this stuff. It just wasn't available. But here recently it has been on discounters, typically around $110, maybe $115 for a 100 ml. That's not bad. I don't know if that's still going on right now, but there for the longest time, that's where it was at, and it was readily available. And I hope it stays that way for a while because, again, for me, this is ultimate usability in terms of an iris scent. Just a little bit of a powdery smell, but not too much. Plenty of freshness to go around too. This one is just balanced out really well. Let's go for a niche fragrance up next. You know, I've talked about a couple of the main ones, the obvious ones that are favorites of mine that I didn't include. And this next one might be obvious to some of you, if you've really paid close attention to what I like, but it's more of a winter scent. It is Killian Straight to Heaven. I mean, every time I smell this one, I am just amazed at how incredible it is, because it really does not seem like something that is a fragrance that you can spray on. Like, that is how realistic and how detailed it is. I mean, it legitimately smells like what this one is described as, which is kind of like an oak barrel, boozy, whiskey-based scent. It's got the dried fruits, it has the oak, it has the boozy accords. I'm just kind of repeating myself, but that's what this one is all about, and it actually smells like that. Like, I would imagine that if you were to smell, an oak barrel that has been used to age some sort of bourbon or something like that, I would think that this is kind of probably what that's going to smell like to some extent. It is very, very detailed and very impressive. So with that being said, not everybody's going to like this because it is pretty extreme. It's not diluted or designered down, dumbed down or anything like that, like a lot of your designer, whiskey or bourbon based scents. I mean, this one is all out. And for me, I love it, but maybe not everybody would. As far as fragrances from the brand of Killian, this would have to be my #1 favorite, but I'll tell you, there are a ton of others that are great too. You got Intoxicated, Black Phantom, the list goes on. Angel Share, but even just in terms of these more expensive ones, I don't know what you call this line. You got the Cellars and the Smokes and stuff. Those are some of my all-time favorites, and man, there's a lot to choose from, but Straight to Heaven is my favorite. Apple Brandy is a key one that I was missing out on. I knew I was missing one that was blatantly obvious for me. Apple Brandy is another one that is just so realistic, it is almost shocking. Okay, let's completely change gears. We're gonna go from, expensive in winter to cheap in summer with Rasi House. I can't tell you how many people I've put onto this one. I'm not talking about like online, I'm talking in person. When somebody asks me, what's a good cologne? What's something that I should get? And typically I'll dive in and I'll ask them a few more questions as far as budget and general type and style that you're looking for. But oftentimes it ends up working out to where we kind of land on this. And this stuff, it's pretty much a no-brainer at this point. Like I said, it's cheap. And by that I mean typically I've seen it for around $22 and generally up to about $30 is kind of where you're at. Anything more than that, you're probably paying maybe a little bit too much. Maybe if it's $32, $33, okay, that's fine. But I wouldn't be paying $40, $50 for this one. It's not necessary. I think I've seen Joma Shop having it on sale for $22, which is that's basically dirt cheap at that point. It's got plum, it's got a ton of ambroxan, a ton of bergamot, a ton of apple, real nice prominent aquatic watery note. It is a beauty. I don't care how hyped up or played out it is for me. It's simply one of my favorites. Also, Invictus Aqua 2016/2024 could easily be in here as well. Although, again, the price is quite a bit more and maybe a little bit harder to get right now. Not a ton. I think Fragrance By has it, maybe a couple others, but this one, you could get this pretty much on any major discounter for a good price. And for me, it is just something that I always look forward to wearing in the summertime. It just works for me. This is the type of DNA that I strive for in the high heat. Okay, let's change gears completely again, go back to a more fall and winter leaning. It is Hugo Boss Bottled Absolute. Man, as far as designer releases go, this one it's at the top of the list in terms of unique and quality, or uniqueness and quality, I guess, and even performance as well. It's a really good performer. And also, we'll just throw it in, price is not outrageous. Typically $97. That's not really all that bad these days, and that's discounted price. Retail price, I think, is $140 or so. That's a bit more premium, but you don't have to pay that. It's smoky, It's a little bit earthy, it's sweet, it's resinous, it's woody, it's masculine smelling as well. Even though it is sweet, it has plenty of other supporting notes to give it a masculine smell, and then also just, again, unique. It really doesn't smell like anything else out there. I mean, maybe it smells a little bit like Boss Bottled Elixir somewhat, but that doesn't really count because, yeah, they're kind of in the same line here. But aside from that, it's kind of on its own, and that's what I love about it. Okay, this next one I believe might be the only one that's a little bit trickier to find. I don't personally foresee a lot of people really wanting to hunt it down anyway, so that's why I felt okay with including it. You know, I don't really include things like highly sought after, hard to find scents, because that just kind of doesn't really achieve a whole lot for people when they want to get it, but they can't. But I don't see people really wanting to try to get this one. I wanted to include it anyway, though, in case you run across the bottle. It's Herrera Virgin Mint. This stuff is wonderful. It is such a bright, green, minty, fresh summer scent that legitimately smells like a nice, warm summer morning. It is phenomenal. So it's got bergamot, it has mint, vetiver, I believe a little bit of mandarin orange in here as well, just a tiny bit, but mostly we're focused on that mint and even the vetiver to a pretty heavy extent later on in the scent, just giving it a nice woody backbone for everything to settle upon. I think this stuff is wonderful. It is everything that I look for in a high heat summer scent. And it's kind of unfortunate that it's not super easy to get, although typically things like this, they just don't stick around all that long anyway, it seems like. I mean, every now and then, you know, you have your Dior Homme Cologne or Versace Mano Fresh style that will stick around for years and is still going. But sometimes, man, these fresher iterations, these fresher fragrances, you know, they don't always hold up compared to some others from the brand and from this Confidential line, you know, Mystery Tobacco, Iris Empire, and so on. So that's a bummer. But again, I don't see a ton of people striving for this. But I do want to say, though, if you do see a bottle for a decent price, it might not be worth picking up. You might be surprised on how good this one is. Okay, this next one is blatantly obvious, but it's one that we'll jump into and just move on past. Acqua di Dhou Parfam. Probably going to go ahead and be my scent of the day, actually. I don't know, I'm just feeling like it today. We'll do that. We'll commit to it right now. Might as well. You know, for me, this is something that I wear as much as I can because I'm generally picky as far as seasonality is concerned. I don't like to wear summer scents in winter. I don't like to wear winter scents in summer. And it's not that you can't do it. It's just that I like how they develop in their respective seasons. And so for me, Acqua di Dhou Parfum Profumo smells the best with some heat on it in the summertime, early spring, whatever. And so whenever we get to that point, I make an effort to wear it as much as I can because I know a lot of times when the season is come and gone, sometimes I'm thinking, man, I wish I would have worn this more or that more. So I try not to have those feelings by making it a point to wearing it as much as I can. That's kind of what I'm doing with this stuff, even though I've worn Acqua di Dhou Profumo an endless number of times over the years, and even the Parfum, although not that old, I've still worn it quite a bit out of these bottles. It's a favorite of mine. All right, we're going to finish things off with Bulgari Man in Black Parfum. It is a nice revision to the very popular, very successful original Eau de Parfum, which is great on its own. Didn't have too much of an issue with it other than performance didn't quite hold up as well as some early versions of Spice Bomb. You know, that's kind of what it was compared to. Wasn't as strong as that. But I do think with this Parfum version, they improved upon the performance quite a bit. I've noticed a significant increase in longevity. A projection, not so much, but longevity, big difference, which is mostly what I'm looking for anyway. Typically, the higher you go in concentration, the lower your projection distance will be. Not always the case, but a lot of times, and that's kind of what I'm seeing here. It's not a weak projector, it just didn't get any stronger. But again, longevity did, and that's probably what most people are after anyway. You know, you want it to actually be able to last through your workday, and this one will. You know, it's mature spice bomb. That's how I've described it. That's what I'll continue to say. It has that kind of smoky rum spiciness that Spice Bomb has, but just with a more mature backbone to it, which is why I like it. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. Some of my most beloved fragrances out of my entire collection, excluding a few blatantly obvious ones, although I did include one. Again, this video is hard to make because there's so many that I love, but these kind of stood out to me when I was making it first, so maybe that means something. I will link them all down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.